we pride ourselves on how we protect our women. And I was actually a little bit ashamed of myself. And I said, you know, I said, it's so actually changed. So I am sorry. One thing, like I told Kathy, one thing that's a little bit frustrating. I did not go to y'all's house. I did not.
Came to my house.
I did not.
In the apartment of town.
Yeah, remember you told me you were around the corner?
So I was around the corner. Jamie came to the door. That wasn't me. Matter of fact, we had just came from the newspaper. He saw you walking. He was like, pull over. I thought that was a shoe place. Wherever you're... I thought that used to be an old shoe place.
It used to be, right? It did, yeah.
So Jamie walks around. I'm standing right there at Ward's office because I'm like, hey, whatever he's about to do, I don't agree with it. I told him do not go over there talking to you. But I did want to, and I was looking around the corner to make sure it didn't get heated because we just came from the newspaper. And I had to kick him because the way he started going at Jenny Ray, I was like, Jenny doesn't have to do anything. Stop, man. And the last thing you want is the newspaper against you. That's the last thing you want. So we had came from there. We just saw you walking. He went around the corner. I was standing at the corner, but I did not come to the front door of your house. And I definitely didn't come and threaten you in front of your kids. I definitely didn't do that. Can we agree that's true? I don't even know where you live, Tammy.
I don't want to bring up the past. I think we move on.
I think I need to hear, like, I didn't do that. Like, that's... Okay, so
And was it your friend?
Jamie may have went to your house. But me and Jamie do that. I look alike. Number one, my mother's sister got killed in 2009. I take violence against women very seriously. I volunteered at the Women's Shelter. I went through a program at Virginia Tech that's called Mentors MVP, Mentors in Violence Prevention. Men's violence against women. Like, I take that very serious about going after women. And kids, especially. Tammy, I think I really need to hear, like, I need to hear that. Like, I did not come to your house.
I think we just have to disagree to disagree. I'm sorry.
Okay, let me ask this. In the age of Karen, in the age of this quote-unquote Karen, whatever they call it.
I love that term.
Right. So, if I would have came to your house, where's the police report?
Chad, I'm not going to go into the details of this. I'm not. We're going to agree to disagree.
You wouldn't have called the police if this big scary Chad would have come to your house.
We're going to agree to disagree. I'm not going to go.
Let me ask one more question. So, I don't know how your house is set up. Is it a drive-in? Is it like a drive parking?
It's where I used. It's where I used to live.
My four-lane truck was parked there.
Okay, let's. I don't want to.
I think the important thing here is there are some things that happened in the past, and they need to stay in the past. And moving forward, we can learn from past history and recognize that there are times that things occur that shouldn't occur, and move on and look for tomorrow as the future and what we can accomplish as a team.
And that was my main goal. Is just to create a professional relationship as fellow counselors.
And I hear that. I really hear that. The thing with me, though, I don't have a lot of money. The scripture talks about a good name is more desired than choice gold and silver. You don't have to apologize to the public at large. All I'm saying is right here with us. Because, okay, let me ask this. hypothetically, if I came to your house, your kids were there, right? That's what you said. What color was my car?
Chad, again, I am not going to talk about this. We can agree to disagree.
Got to get back to utilizing that of bringing people together. Not from a got to get back to utilizing that of bringing people together. Not from a political standpoint, but from that's why it's got to get back to utilizing that of bringing people together. Not from a political standpoint, but from that's why the schools are the most important thing for us in this community. On a Sunday, most of our people have some type of church. So
I'm just saying, and we pride ourselves on
It's in the past. We're now on the city council together, and we just have to move on.
Tammy, I will go on public and actually apologize for the way all I'm asking you to do is...
I don't want you to go in public and apologize or anything. We just have to say, starting today, we're going to be professional relationship.
And how you do that is clear the air. It's very simple. Like, I didn't come at your house. I wouldn't do that. And quite frankly, if I did do that, I'm thinking about the husband-wife relationship. If me and Kathy was married, Will came after her. I don't care if he was on city council. I don't care if he was the president. I no longer would want to talk to Will ever again if he came up. Could you understand that as a man, right? And so, if you call me, just at the very beginning of this year, I don't know if you remember, you just called me at the very beginning, hey Chad, would you mind helping getting more people uptown? Because, it's just slow uptown. If I was married to Kat, I don't care if you're on city council. I have no words for you no more because you threatened the very part of me that's the best part of me.
Well, that's my business that pays my family and pays almost 30 other families rent and mortgages, and we needed business uptown. I reached out to everybody on city council. Some people don't call you back on city council. You do. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I called you.
You called me back too. I was not trying to
I think he was referring.
But I think the important thing here, Chad, is that we recognize that there's some things that happened that were unfortunate, that in hindsight should never have happened. But we as professional people can move forward as colleagues, as representatives of the city, and we can do a lot of good.
That's why I ran. Praying for that. Hoping for that.
And I think Tammy has a very strong faith and we need to, look to the Lord and to seek guidance, and I think we can all do that.
Thank you for dinner.
when someone calls live and then we take a breath and think about what in the world
Just happened.
just happened. Ian, what were you doing about this time last night?
What was I doing about this time last night? I guess I was at a city council meeting and got to observe Caleb address an issue that he wanted to bring before Mayor Jones. And I got to see, really the fireworks started after all was said and done. The meeting itself was fairly, Caleb delivered his 3-minute speech. I think it was very impactful. There were different city council members who indicated that they thought it needed to be said. But the real discussion took place after close of business.
Good. I actually have that footage. We're not playing it tonight. Caleb will be playing it. Were you standing there?
I was in the audience, so I was like a few rows back from where the discussion was taking place between he and Mayor Jones and the people that were still behind the desk after the close of the meeting.
Okay.
But there was conversation to be heard all around the room. There was conversation going on in the back.
Yeah.
There was conversation going on in the front. So.
About what Caleb brought up?
About what Caleb brought up, about, can we just say everything?
Yeah.
Okay, about what Caleb specifically addressed, about the concerns about the character of Mayor Jones and some other city council people and their activities, and whether it's appropriate for persons that are occupying a place in city government.
Okay, so in the last 2 weeks, Ian, if you're just joining us, we're on What Does the Bible Say? And we do these segments regularly where I call it Living Local. And I also, Ian, I depict it as things that most individuals, whether you are in business, let's say you're a small business owner, and I'm a preacher, and you basically decide to take on city council. You're asking for it,
Yeah.
are you not?
Yeah.
Because y'all, when you think about what he's doing as a small businessman, he's not a small business owner. But if he were, you better have your zoning intact. You better have your signs right.
Yep.
It's just a myriad of things that, that an employee can go through in boxes that they start clicking and saying, we call it selective enforcement. They call it politics, as usual.
Yeah.
And so with us now, I'm just going to say, let me think about this. I will say this. When we work on some county officials in the past in Danville City, in Danville, next thing you know, when we had a tent, all of them showed up.
Yep.
And
that's
you
right.
have special insight into that.
Yeah,
because
that's
you
right.
heard one of them one of the city managerial, can I say that, staff actually tell the story maybe 4 or 5 years later.
Yeah, it must have been about 4 or 5 years later.
Okay.
And I overheard it. It's not like I brought anything up. But she brought it up to my supervisor, who happened to be digging on the same hole that I was, putting in a post or something. And when she started describing the scenario, I immediately recognized it as the scenario. She didn't bring up your name yet.
Yeah.
But that's when I chimed in and I said, well, you did say it was unusual for all y'all, because she said in the discussion with my supervisor, she said, granted, it might have been strange for us all to be there at one time, but she thought your reaction when you came out ready to catch things on record was surprising. To which I responded, well, it's not surprising if it is the case that you're saying it was an extraneous scenario to have every city official show up at the same spot.
Okay. So, y'all, what we're describing is finding ourselves in a position with the city because of our talk about religious entities, where these people in the city, they end up start talking about it. Well, do you know this TV program called What Does the Bible Say? Yeah. Well, I'm a Pentecostal and they've been talking about my pastor. Well, I'm a Baptist. They've been talking about my pastor. And I'm apostolic and they've been talking about my pastor. And the next thing you know, after, that was 2010, that was 4 years after we started broadcasting. 2010 comes along and they finally decide to do something about us from a united front from the city.
Coalition.
That's right.
Yeah.
So everybody shows up. Zoning, I don't remember what the parking person who has you do your parking and stuff like that, the person who gives you a permit to even build or whatever, he was there, and then the fire chief. And so, hey, you know what we did? We went to television with the video showing all of them doing all this stuff at the same time. And the city manager basically called him in and said, y'all are making us look crazy. You know, what are you doing all out there at the same time? That's where we are right now. So tonight, we're not going to play all this footage, but we're basically going to let you hear what we do have footage of, and so does everybody else because they heard it. The new city council convenes, and one of the city council members basically, as they're convening for the new session, he just ends up looking at one of the women and he says, I don't trust you, and you just helped get somebody else in as mayor and he listed words like doesn't tell the truth, another word for that, and he listed that he basically uses his office, just all kinds of stuff, right? And it's still, you know, it's still up online.
Yeah.
And so we're hearing all this. So back to our scenario. So if you were a small business owner, I'm a preacher, whatever it is that we're doing, this is what we could suffer. The situation that we suffered in Danville is what we could suffer. And ultimately, one of us end up being arrested, having to get our lawyer and going to court with the entire city. So when I tell you that we're living local and we're broadcasting tonight information about what is taking place, you know, I want preachers now, let's talk about the preachers in the Church of Christ. I want them to realize, listen, y'all, you don't get to be a preacher so that you can be in some ivory tower. If you know, Ian, have you ever thought about this? In the New Testament, Paul is basically going through Asia Minor, Asia, and into Europe. These are, you know, you've got basically Ethiopia being talked about. You've got Alexandria, Egypt being talked about. So when you look at a map today, does that map resemble the first century?
I wouldn't know how borders get rearranged.
Well, but still, pretty much country. Yep, it's not the United States.
That's right.
So if a guy is going to preach, you know, in the United States, you can go state to state. And, you know,
freedom to roam.
Right. You can roam, put up your tent all over the United States, and people say, and they do it. But if you're talking about the map that you're seeing, Asia Minor, it's Asia Minor, Europe, and Africa, it's still there. And my point of bringing that up is these guys, as they crossed into countries, they end up crossing into a whole nother law system.
Cultures, laws, magistrates.
So I'm preaching in Cyprus, and you've got magistrates, and they're totally different. And who knows all of those?
Yep.
I mean, so when Paul goes to Antioch of Pisidia, first thing that happens, he gets into it with the deputy and a guy who is a Jew that's advising the deputy. Next thing you know, he's in trouble. And so can you tell what my point is as I'm going through here? He moves into Corinth, he's in trouble. He moves into Athens, he's in trouble. Different, as you said, magistrates, municipalities.
Sounds like if you want to do something of consequence, you really don't have any choice but to be willing to at least confront trouble.
Exactly.
Not ivory tower stuff.
If you're going to evangelize that continent, you're going to go through, and it's the exact same, those countries, you know, borders in Germany didn't exist back then, stuff like that, but still, it's the same principle. He's going from place to place that has different rulers. It must have been daunting. I just can't imagine, but really I can.
Yep.
Because we're doing it.
Yep.
When we go over to North Carolina, you know, I don't know if a lot of you know, I'm on hiatus right now from having been put off of the station in North Carolina. And it is simply because Caleb did a show where he talked about a woman preacher in North Carolina, outside of Raleigh, that he's been talking about for the last 3 years here in Martinsville. And we were still on television. Did it in the wrong
place, right?
Huh?
He just did it in the wrong place.
That's right.
Yeah.
So she moved to North Carolina, of all places, right where we're broadcasting. Caleb does a broadcast. First broadcast that he does, the owner kicks me off. And so that's the principle that I'm trying to say. And somebody might say back to us, well, y'all just don't have good sense. What you should do is modify your message so that it doesn't really affect. Are you kidding? Now, here's the other side of that story. She's asking me to come back on. Like 3 times already in 2025, she's asked me, are you coming back on?
The one who runs the station?
Yes.
Yep.
So here we are. And what I'm thinking about doing is sending her Thursday's show. Last Thursday, when Caleb, that was what I was thinking about, where Caleb was basically showing all these different entities. He had Chad Martin, who used to be a city council member. He has Malvester on, and they're all talking, and it's all coming right back to this guy right here.
Yep.
Are you kidding? The mayor? And I'm really thinking about sending her that show and saying, now, can your station handle this? You kicked me off because of a very liberal woman pastor, Baptist church that's never had a woman pastor before. This is their first one, and she is DEI. Man, I'm talking about she should be in the encyclopedia for the picture. You know, what is her name? Libby Grammer. So I think this is so far over the top from Libby Grammer. But if she says, you know, my station can handle that, and she may say it's a new, after the 20th inauguration, she may say my station can handle it. But here's the point: that when what we're trying to show y'all. Let me ask you this: was it tense in the city council?
I think it was tense for some folks.
Was it tense for you?
I did not feel intimidated.
Yeah.
I don't think Caleb did either. He expressed that he wanted to make sure that he got everything into his 3 minutes that he wanted to.
Yeah.
But he said, as far as talking to Mayor Jones, that he was just having a conversation. It did appear to me, however, that Mayor Jones was not necessarily having a good time.
Okay.
They shook hands. Everything was cordial at the end, but he was not appreciative.
Well, let's just kind of give you a little bit, let our folk, this is something that we're going to talk about, Ian. This is, I thought the date was on there. I do believe it was 2020. And we had a shooting in Martinsville. It's at the Patrick Henry Mall. It was at a Mexican restaurant.
I remember this.
And so, you know, as all of this comes out, Chad, at this particular point, he is a city council member. And he goes out and jumps into it, and he ends up, you know, being just totally off on what's going on here. And so then we decide to have him on, and let's talk about what we could do to help the community. You're on the show.
Yep.
Caleb's on the show, and I'm on the show, as you can see right here. And so what I want us to do tonight is I want us to get just a short glimpse into what happens when the city government decides that they're going to be the mediator. They're going to be the one that does the psychology now. We're not talking about enforcement. We're talking about the psychology to help our crime problems. And that's basically what you're going to hear. You're going to hear a sitting city council. Can I ask you, when I actually said that psychology stuff, is it all right for me to talk about some of your family members?
Yeah.
Do you have any family members that are kind of high up in psychology?
I think Cindy is doing all right for herself in that field. And if we're talking about the readiness of the field to address certain social issues, she bemoans the direction that it's taking. Okay. It doesn't appear sufficient to help family members. Nobody's willing to tell people what they need to hear in order to change their lives. Everybody's basically doing a person-centered, how you feel in the moment, pick your own path kind of thing, which is remarkable. People are paying for that sort of a service.
Okay, so Ian is being modest. His wife has a PhD in psychology, and it is if you got a PhD, it is specialized. I mean, that's the very definition of a PhD. It is specialized, and it actually has to do with people who have PTSD as a result of having lived their entire life in a Civil War torn country. Now, this guy right here, Chad Martin, is going to be part of our subject tonight. And it's like, you know, how can I get our community to recognize what goes on the city council? And here's the problem, Ian. Even though I said that business about, I'm going to use names, Aaron Rawls, his speech over to Kathy Lawson during the convening of the new session with the new members, that is still up online. But I'm saying just with us, talking to the community, you ought to get involved and go to martinsvillecity.gov and scroll down and watch that. Now, I'm assuming that we will eventually put something like that up. I actually have it, but we had a guest tonight who was a criminal by his own admission, and he was going to come on and talk about with us, with me and you, about what it's like to be a person who's been in trouble, and then you're trying to get things right. And so I think you're very well qualified for that. And then we said his wife's got a PhD, and then we got Chad Martin, and he's on with me. Well, the reason I brought Chad Martin on is because he is in the city council. He's a person who maybe he hears more than the normal person or whatever. But how many people do you think are going to get online and look up the city convening and hear the chaos?
I wish that they would, and I think that is his name Aaron, who we were talking about earlier, has a son and everything. Okay, Aaron, he has the son and everything. We talked about him having a son or a child. He's the one that spoke directly to the lady about not trusting her. Yeah. He said that he went to great lengths to try to get certain kinds of information in front of the community about what was really going on with the city council and how decisions were being made, what was happening to funds, things of this nature.
Mm-hmm. And he mentioned some high figures on funds too. Yes,
high figures, direct names, and he expressed that he was dismayed that there wasn't more public attention on it, even though he tried to put it out on, he said, Charles Rourke's show. I think he, again, in the city council meetings, he's been very vocal, and his words were, I've been pushing and nobody cares. So if people would go and seek that information out, I think that their eyes would be opened to some of the things that are of concern.
Well, let me say at this juncture, this is not the church in politics. We are not in politics. We're not even talking politics. You might say, well, you're talking about all these city council members and all this. We are not talking about politics. We're talking to you about the crime. And we're talking about the solution to the crime. And we're talking about the fact that our politicians are trying to get in it. And they're using psychology. This dude's going to be using psychology. So at this point, I want to back up and let you hear what was going on. Now, we talked about Aaron Rawls. I want to let you hear what was going on in the city council before Aaron Rawls was ever a member and Chad was a sitting member. And so this, I don't think they're going to believe it. So let's cue up Chad Martin, a city council member who has something that is going on behind the scenes, and just I have a hard time thinking when I'm reading. All right, here we go.
We pride ourselves on having success. And I was actually a little bit ashamed of myself. I said, so I am sorry. One thing, it's a little bit frustrating. I did not go to y'all's house. I
came to my house. To the apartment of town.
Remember you told me you were around the corner?
So I was around the corner. Jamie came to the door. Or wasn't me.
How are we doing on audio? Is that all right?
His volume is just
all right. So let me. Some of it is going to get better. So at least let me set it up. What this is Chad Martin at a dinner with Tammy Pearson and Kathy Lawson, and I don't know who arranged the meal, but I do know what's going on. And people might ask, well, how do you know? Well, the reason I know is Chad borrowed my recorder because he was going to this dinner. He comes along, as you saw a moment ago, me and Chad on television. We have a relationship. He's done recording work for us all the way back to the instituting of BTW. He actually went in with a recorder to see what BTW would say about certain things, and just, a Pentecostal station coming on the scene. So, we have a history. And so I loan him my recorder. And when he gives it back to me, I basically said, do you need this recording? And he's like, no, I don't need it. So I still have the same recorder. It's still on there, which it doesn't matter what. I can do whatever I want to with my recording. And so here we go. It's him basically trying to get something settled, and it gives you an idea of what's going on with city council members just as this session actually gets started. So they're at a dinner, and you're hearing Chad, Tammy Pearson, and Kathy Lawson.
Matter of fact, we had just came from the newspaper. He saw you walking, pull over. I thought there was a shoe place. Wherever you're, I thought there used to be an old shoe place.
Yeah.
So Jamie walks around. I'm standing right there at Ward's office because I'm like, hey, whatever he's about to do, I don't agree with it. I told him do not go over there talking to you, but I did.
Okay, let me stop here. I don't know who Jamie is, but whoever Jamie is, and Jamie, if you hear this, your buddy Chad is throwing you under the bus. Because whatever it is that Chad has supposedly done to Tammy, Chad is denying it, and he is saying that whatever Jamie was doing, he don't have no part of it. Okay? So was that clear enough? As going for, okay, great. Here we go.
And I was looking around the corner to make sure it didn't get heated because we just came from the newspaper. And I had to kick him because the way he started going at Jenny Ray, I was like, Jenny doesn't have to do anything. Stop, man. The last thing you want is the newspaper against you. That's the last thing you want. So we had came from there. We just saw you walking. He went around the corner. I was standing at the corner, but I did not come to the front door of your house.
Whoa. So we're discussing whether or not a man comes to a single woman's house at night, and he's basically saying, I didn't do it. Jamie did it. And so, I mean, how is this kind of sounding anyway with the idea of him throwing Jamie under the bus?
It definitely sounds like he's trying to distance himself from whatever Jamie's activities are supposed to be.
Well, I do know who Jamie is, but I can't remember his last name, or I would tell it. And so it's just, some of you are, man, Joey, how about we do this? I don't know who Jamie is, but can I ask you this? I'm going to just leave that alone. All right, here we go.
And I definitely didn't come and threaten you in front of your kids. I definitely didn't do that.
Are you hearing this?
Yeah.
So you got 3 city council members. They're at a meal. They're having a meal together. Well, what's this meal about? Well, I can tell you that the meal was really about us talking about going forward in city council. Hey, Ian, I'm not going to vote against you all the time. I just want you to know that. If you're in the city council, I'm not going to be voting against you. I'm not going to be partying up with this other group. We're going to be trying to do what's best for the city. But when we're at this meal, there's something that's actually the other 2 city council members don't know about that's still pending. And Chad is trying to get that fixed going forward. And what did he just say? I didn't threaten you in front of your children. And so if anybody did, it's Jamie. Now, y'all, if you're wondering what I'm doing, I am trying to paint for you. I am, number one, trying to paint for you the possibility that you need to recognize Chad Martin for maybe different than how you have been viewing him. Number 2, I'm painting the picture of what's going on in a city council. These folk have different agendas that are so far, they're as far as Mars, from the moon when you really get down to it. But then you got some of them that's just got something going on totally, and this goes on for another 5 minutes.
Can we agree that's true? I don't even know where you live, Tammy.
I don't want to bring up the past. I think we move on.
I think I need to hear, I didn't do that. That's... Okay, so
And was it your friend?
Jamie may have went to your house.
In front of kids.
But me and Jamie did. I look alike. Number 1, my mother's sister got killed in 2009. I take violence against women very seriously. I volunteered at the women's shelter. I went through a program at Virginia Tech called Mentors MVP, Mentors in Violence Prevention. Men's violence against women.
Okay, I'm going to stop there, and we're going to come back there to 2 minutes and 34 seconds because Chad is very credential oriented. Let me tell you, I went through this, and this, and this. And so I have a little bit of a head start on you, Ian, in that I've listened to something that's from 2020 lately. And he did the same thing with you.
Yep.
Folks sent me to Boston, and I went through. And so here we go with you and Chad. All right. This is basically Chad's, this again, let me back up just a second because some people may be just now tuning in. This is the city council basically saying we would like to put the hat, scoot over just a little bit and let us see Mayor Jones. We would like to put on this hat where, now I'm going to give it to Mayor Jones. He is a former policeman and a county deputy, I believe is how it goes, or city deputy. And I'm not saying that he is trying to remedy the crime. He's trying to come up with a remedy that maybe they're not utilizing to do something about the crime. And some of it involves pastors and different persons. And we're just going to give you an instance of what if another city council guy actually is advising him. I know 100% that he does from time to time get advice from Chad Martin. So here we go. This is us responding to the city councils saying we're going to remedy the crime problem, but we're going to remedy it by using pastors and things of that nature. So here's one of the city council 2020 after a shooting, and this is what he basically comes up with.
Whatever you want in this, it's an organization called Youth on Board, and the concept is listening works. It's deep listening and radical vulnerability.
Okay, that's me. Everybody, you can see that, but you're in the wings.
Yep.
Right? We're all in there together. And so you're getting to listen to him. You're getting to hear this. Now, y'all, for the community's sake, that's Leonard R. Jones back there, former president of the NAACP. And I can't think of this other guy's name. People will remember him if I could think of him. But anyway, they're discussing what's going on. Caleb, young Caleb, is actually running the camera when those two guys are standing out there talking at a city council. And so I'm saying, y'all, we have the stuff that goes on. I'm talking about some serious discussion back in here. And the reason I have Chad in that is Chad and I were working together back then. From the standpoint of, yes, Chad, I will come in. I'm not going to wear your badge, but I'm going to come in and, we will present some ideas. And this is just a long running. Ours have always been different. They're wanting to unify through let's all agree to disagree. And we're saying, no, there is a different remedy. But okay, let's listen to Chad's idea of what it would help, how men can actually get over crime.
The issue is that it's teaching people how to have listening projects. And so a listening project sounds like me and you, Johnny. So for 5 minutes, you get to talk. I don't do anything but listen. I don't offer advice. I don't do anything else. Matter of fact, a perfect example, like finally, you understand what I'm dealing with. And so the concept is it's finally about a bunch of men who've been told for years, don't cry. It's finally about a bunch of men, you get to yell, you get to scream, you get to cuss, you get to do whatever you want in this safe space. And it's not about judging you. It's not about putting blame on you. It's finally you get to have this safe space and you get to talk about whatever your feelings are. The first hour is about dealing with how you guys feeling. Second hour / third hour is about issues and how do we work together to solve this issue.
I mean, can you imagine, like in one of the dorms, LA County, and you're up in there, and you're basically presenting this idea?
It's significant to me that when people go to jail, they're not they're expected to follow rules in jail too, among the inmates. There's a way that you communicate with people. You don't want to disrespect one another. There's emphasis placed on making sure you make yourself heard when you need to. But as far as the listening component that he seems to be stressing here, I don't, I'm not sure particularly what's new about that, except for the other person gets to basically be possibly verbally abusive or very excitable in the conversation.
Well, people that you know, let's just say, just because you know what he's advocating? He's actually, y'all, he's advocating that men in Martinsville, black men, I didn't get invited. I actually got invited and uninvited. So he basically said, for this particular time, Johnny, you can't come to the Sportsman's Club because these black men need a space where they can take their armor off. They can cry, they can cuss, they can holler, and, with the exception of cussing and hollering, it sounds like a glorified AA meeting to me.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because my mind did go back to AA when he was talking about some of this. I spent a little bit of time going to AA meetings.
Can I interrupt?
Yeah.
When we say, well, why are we letting Ian talk about this anyway? Did you hear me say he has been in L.A. County Jail? And he tells Chad that he was in there this particular stretch where he's going to answer Chad. He said, I was in there for 9 months.
During one of the times that I was in there.
You were in there one of the times. And so one of the things, the reason I have Ian on is, who do you want to hear from? Do you want to hear from the guy that actually, he's found his way out of L.A.? He came in through Texas, comes in to live here. He's working his way is what he's doing. Out of L.A., via Texas, down to Virginia. He is now, you've been here since 2017?
2018. I guess beginning of 18.
Okay, yeah. 2018. You just heard him telling about working for the city of Danville. Supervisor is telling stories supervisor's hearing stories in front of him, and evidently he's positioned in his job to the point where he feels comfortable saying to one of the, was she zoning?
She was what was her department exactly?
Signs and parking.
She was definitely on the services aspect of Parks and Rec.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're comfortable enough in your positioning, having been a person in LA County. Here you are moved over here and you're now working with the city and you're about to what? You're going to correct somebody in the higher echelon who is talking to your supervisor who didn't ask for your input. and then basically we've got Chad. Chad has just had his second DUI in the last 7-8 months. He had, I believe, got a DUI on the 7th of January, and he's basically talking to me about how these men would be so much better off if they could get in this space where they could take their armor off. And do you think he knows any criminals?
I don't know, he may.
I'm saying,
I don't know that he would necessarily.
No, I'm talking about knows criminals, hangs out with guys that we're talking about that would shoot it up over here at Patrick Henry Mall.
I don't think so. I don't know if that would be the conversation he'd be having with them anyway. You want to just get together and cry a little bit about this?
Over at the sports.
Kind of doubt it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, what in the world? Let's hear a little bit more.
About violence and what are we willing to work on? And so it's really about men who have been told for years, you've had to have this armor on for years. You've been told by communities that you've had to have this armor on for years. And it's frustrating. It's literally frustrating that you've had to have this armor on for years and it's not working. So it's about time we get a chance to open up and just tell how we feel. And it's okay to say how we feel. And then let's talk about, okay, now we've talked about how we feel, and now we talk about how we get to work together.
Boy, man, such a short-term little thing there, and he remedied it. Well, guess what? I don't even know if they went to Sportsman's Club, but I know we have shootings all the time around here. And so
there's a lot that's bound up in those kinds of terms. Then we get to talk about how we get to work together.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means.
Yeah. And how did you even get to that point? By one meeting at 3 hours in the Sportsman's Club.
Yep.
And we're talking about guys who just shot up the place. Well, can I tell you one thing about the guest that I had tonight? Ian, the guy, you actually heard him reference, you heard he and I discuss something that happened when you were not with us. Do you remember, were you surprised that we discussed a subject of such a serious nature that happened earlier today before you got involved?
Was I surprised when you told me?
No, when you heard me and him discussing
Oh,
it.
no. Well, I did hear a little bit about it in advance, so I wasn't shocked.
Yeah.
But, to hear you guys talking frankly about it, it's like, okay, that happened just a few hours ago, and here you are talking with him in the street.
Okay.
And it's civil, and people are shaking hands at the end of it.
I am glad you positioned that way. But that's not where I was going, but that's great. So we'll get to that. This guy, he and I were discussing whether or not I would be shot by some of the people that he is involved with if I had just done to them what I did to him in his perception. Now, do you think Chad is actually involved with individuals like that? I'm saying where, let's say I brought Chad over instead of you. And Chad hears that this guy has just told me that the infraction against him is at the level that his friends would have killed me right then. And I bring Chad in. Let me tell you, Chad was the last person that I would think about bringing to meet that guy. And I brought you. Now, one guy asked you, are you the bodyguard for Caleb? I didn't bring you because of your size. I brought you, do you mind showing your?
Oh, yeah, not at all.
This is, it's prison tats. Prison language, the guy that we were talking to had the same, he didn't have the same message on his fists, but they were there. He had tats here and tats here. And it's like, y'all, this is foolishness. And so before we bring you in and your psychological discussion, which we have on the record, let's basically show y'all what Mayor Jones is proposing. But first, let's look at a documentary that was done by CNN. You recognize these guys? I don't recognize anybody. I recognize this guy, but can't remember his name. But CNN brought him up there because they would be recognizable at the time. It's a woman preacher. I don't think she is really a person. And then you've got a very well-known black pastor who has gone under, I do believe these days. Something's happened to him. And then you've got Billy Graham. And what does the caption say? Faith could bring us together, but too often it divides us. Mayor Jones basically is proposing that we have pastors who themselves are saying each other are going to hell, actually get together and build a coalition so that they can unify our community or help remedy, talk about, go to the sportsman's club. I don't know what you guys are coming up with, but I'm saying these two guys, this one particularly, what he does is he runs around the building and jumps over the pews and claims that God is calming the storm and visions, and his women get up front and shake their booty. And I'm saying, I'm not ashamed to say this kind of stuff. It is ridiculous. He's an apostolic. That means if you don't believe that Jesus is the only, I'm saying the Godhead, the word Godhead exists because it is a concept.
Yeah.
Instead of just saying God, the Holy Spirit said Godhead, which tells you that's a concept. Do I understand it 100%? No. But I do know that Alan Preston can't defend his position, and he says that this Baptist is going straight to hell if he baptizes in any other fashion or formula than Jesus only for the remission of sins. This dude don't even believe in the remission of sins associated with anything but faith only. So you got Charles Whitfield and Alan Preston, and this is your team, a part of your team. This is the plan that the mayor has going on. So CNN was discussing, the very same thing. I mean, it's going on all over our country, So what do you think, Ian? Does it divide?
Are you saying bringing all these different people together?
Can religion, that was CNN, and I'm saying, I would say that CNN had a crew of individuals that probably did some pretty good research on this subject. as opposed to our mayor and the group of individuals?
Yeah, I would have much more confidence in CNN. I don't know about, now, but certainly back then, whenever this story was put together, than I would in the folks that are at the top of city council right now.
Okay, I'm putting it out there because, I don't have a problem with Mayor Jones as a person. This is not personal. But I would say, the mayor doesn't need to listen to me either, necessarily. But, Mayor, you guys, would you look at this? Faith could bring us together, but too often it divides us. Now, here's the thing. When you really get down to it, here's one thing that you might think about. Everybody knows this. What is the most segregated day of the week? Well, this particular article actually puts forth 9 a.m. Sunday morning, the most segregated hour in the U.S. Can I add to that? It's the most divided hour in the United States, because all of these people that are, this is basically the city, is it the city hall? I'm pretty sure this is one of the front door City Hall. These guys are of a different faith, so on Sunday, who will they be unifying?
They're going to be unifying with like-minded individuals.
Exactly,
Yep.
exactly. So now, what I would like to do now is I would like to hear you hear an alternative to what Chad said from a guy, and you're going to say it in your own words, so I'm going to let you say it. All right. Let's see. I hate thinking while I'm trying to read my own little titles. Here we go.
I was going in and out of jail quite a lot. And one of the last time I went to jail, I spent 9 months in there. Mm-hmm. And there was something that I noticed in the area that I was at. It was kind of an anomaly. Individuals in the dorm scenario, mm-hmm. in a particular section of LA County Jail, mm-hmm. wound up doing a version of basically what you're talking about, where individuals took the armor off. Mm. And it largely had to do with, in jail, individuals tend to auto-segregate. Mm. If
he doesn't know. He doesn't know. You're going to explain it.
Yeah.
He has no idea. When you said that, So, basically you're schooling him while he's basically talking about going down and hearing guys cry, cuss, and yell for 3 hours at the sportsman club. You're actually, all right, so auto-segregate.
Folks don't know what that phenomenon is. It's basically you hit jail.
I was about to say, you need to explain that.
Okay. Yeah. Auto-segregation is just a phenomenon where you enter jail, individuals look at you and they make a snap decision about what group you identify with. So if I roll in there, folks are going to be looking at me and they're going to see a white guy and they're going to say, well, you're either a Wood, which means you're a nondescript, unaffiliated white person, or you're an Aryan Nation or some sort of affiliated person. Right. So that happens with everybody as they go in, and everybody feels this social pressure. Well, I gotta make sure that I say the right thing and associate with the right group, otherwise I might find myself in hot water. Right. So it just happens, well, in this particular area of LA County Jail, there were certain leaders in place that made a decision, and I was fortunate to be involved with this. We made a decision amongst ourselves that we were going to eliminate certain types of activities, regardless of what group was participating in them, so that we could actually alleviate the dorm environment of things that contributed to violence rather than peace.
That's good.
Of tension rather than relaxation. And it got to the point where folks that were coming in were briefed by members of their race, faces they would be familiar with. They were briefed as they were coming in, okay, here we have there's a different get down in this dorm than there is in the rest of the jail, and if you're not comfortable with that, and a lot of people weren't.
They weren't?
A lot of people were scared about that because they were afraid.
They weren't? They weren't? You reckon?
Yeah.
Man, keep going in.
Afraid of being judged
from a different
other members of their group. So let's say I land in a particular dorm where the rules are different.
I just need to say, y'all remind people that they can call in.
Okay, that's right.
Oh, that's right.
We're just giving a reminder. If anybody wants to get in.
Well, let me do that too. Just a reminder, you can call into this broadcast. It may be broadcasting on Star News tonight. I'm not 100% sure just, how broad that we are. I know we're broadcasting to YouTube, but during that session, we were letting people call in, and we are saying the same thing tonight. This is real time, and we're talking about real time stuff. And so go ahead and listen.
On the conversation, we have the phone lines up at the bottom of the screen. Feel free to call in if you want to comment.
Do you know how to do calling?
Well, we'll get a brief. If a call comes in, we'll figure out how to work the phone. So
just for a word, just for everybody, Chad's a little bit lit here, and we didn't really realize it until after the show, and we kind of had to help him down the hill and whatnot. So he started out pretty good.
So here's a scenario, for instance. I hit LA County Jail, and I'm expecting, per routine, to associate with my particular group and be oriented to the dorm. But when I get there, a member of quote, my group approaches and says, look, we do things differently here. And around here, blacks and whites and Southsiders and Paises, they call them, Mexicans from Mexico, right? So they're generally not Spanish speaking anyways. That's neither here nor there. They would let me know as I come in, we all freely associate here. We're not really doing the cliquey thing. People are allowed to share food. People play board games with one another. I might feel uncomfortable with that because I know that I could get transferred out of here at any moment. And if word has hit other areas of the jail
that you wasn't willing to be with.
That's right. So I might feel uncomfortable.
We're going to give you more. I can't believe that he didn't know this. Like once you get out of this scenario, people are going to say, Ian, what is up?
And when you get back to the street.
That's what I'm saying. When you get back to the street, it's like, what is up? And he's like, oh, what?
Yeah. I mean, if you've never been in scenarios, you've never been in them, but it does show when you've never been in them.
Well, can I say this too? Listen, I don't have a testimony. Ian's not giving you a testimony, but I will tell you this. People around here know my past because a church secretary, basically that didn't like me over in Collinsville, decided to look up and see what kind of person I was because they decided to fire me and I just didn't go quietly. And she found out that I had a criminal record. And so basically, I want to say to you, the sheriff and the deputies do not understand the criminals. Can we just mark that down?
Yeah.
I'm saying I'm in the Texas penitentiary, and I am telling you the people who are guarding us are not the people that we go to for psychological help when we get out. It just is not realistic. People who are in charge of enforcement and containment are not the individuals who understand the things that we're talking about here. Ian is a person who has been there. I'm a person who has been there. Today I was on the streets with a guy. He had been in my car. He got aggravated with me. And the next thing we're talking about is he said some of his friends would pop me. And I'm like, okay, you know what? It happens. And guess what street it was on? I'm not going to tell you exactly where the street is, but I can tell you this. We had to go to 4th Street to get there. And the shootings that have happened here on 4th Street and the street across the street, the murders that have taken place over in this area and the houses that have been shot into. I'm saying the police, nobody is going to talk to the police. I guarantee you that guy knows the people who shot up the houses. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
So let's continue to listen. Chad doesn't have a clue.
That because I know that I could get transferred out of here at any moment. And if word has hit other areas of the jail
that you wasn't willing to be with.
That's right. So people come in and that armor is way up. When they realize what's going on in the dorm, it's different than what they've been used to.
Wow.
And it's different than the rules that have been set in place by their group.
Wow.
They are afraid of that cultural backlash because that's what it winds up being. So.
Oh, Chad's been to Boston. He's telling Tammy Pearson, should we go back now to Tammy Pearson and hear how he's telling Tammy Pearson that, man, violence against women, it's just totally out of my arena. I went to this. If we decide to come back here, it's 3 minutes and 29 seconds. Ian, I'm glad you're here. I'm saying the just having persons on board that I was already doing this before you came. I mean, you know that. That's how you clicked with us. But, always having people on board with us. One of the guys that was with us at one point he had just rebel flag, all kinds of stuff, sleeve, and he had been robbed. He was actually buying drugs, and he was robbed by the two black guys that he was buying drugs from. He's a white guy. He becomes a member of the body of Christ. He was a seminary-trained Baptist, but he had, gone off and was just acting crazy, and he used to be on board. That's the kind of people that gravitate towards us, and then we get to talk to other individuals because when they see us coming in, I actually am in a position from a conversation last week to be in touch with the former head of the KKK again. And his life is just, it's gone from it was tanking the last time we were talking. He was asking me would I perform the wedding for one of his sons. And I'm telling you, the guy that I was with today, and even though we're talking about him, but I haven't named names, I'll be back in a position to contact him tomorrow, and he's a black guy. And it's just, this Chad. So let's go back to Chad. I named this Chad tries to trick Tammy into getting a confession out of her. He kept saying, I need to hear this, that I didn't do this. All right, here we go. 2:34.
So, Tammy, I think I really need to hear, I need to hear that. I did not come to your house.
So y'all, if you're just now tuning in, he's recording her, and he needs to hear it because he plans to play it.
That's right.
Yeah, he's taking,
he sounds like a narc.
Huh? Yes.
He sounds like a narc.
Yeah, and he's basically going to clear himself later.
Yep.
Yeah, if she ever brings this up again, then he's going to have... Look, I have footage of Tammy saying that I didn't do this. Tammy, I need to hear you say it because, we're going to be working together. It's like this is this unity idea that he's got going on that we'll all do well in the city council. If I can just hear you say you don't have this going on anymore.
I think we just have to disagree to disagree. I'm sorry.
Okay, let me ask this. In the age of Karen,
Pardon me?
in the age of this quote-unquote Karen, whatever they call it.
I love that term.
Right. So, if I...
In the age of Karen, I have no idea where he's going with this. Never did figure it out, but we all know what Karen is now.
came to your house, where's the police report?
Chad, I'm not going to go into the details of this. I'm not. We're going to agree to disagree.
You wouldn't have called the police if this big scary Chad would have came to your house.
Yeah, I cannot believe he said that. The way he said it. This big, scary Chad. For those of you who don't know, Tammy's white. She was a single mother. And he's basically saying, where's the police report if I really did this? And it's like, dude, you've already been told. And now her husband is actually sitting there too, by the by. And, that's a part that I didn't bring up. He's willing to sit through this.
We're going to agree to disagree. I'm not going to go.
Let me ask one more question. So, I don't know how your house is set up. Is it a drive-in? Is it like a drive parking?
It's where I used. It's where I used to live. This is before. Okay, let's. I don't want to.
I think the important thing here is there are some things that happened in the past, and they need to stay in the past. And moving forward, we can learn from past history and recognize that there are times that things occur that shouldn't occur, and move on and look for tomorrow as the future and what we can accomplish as a team.
And that was my main goal. Is just to create a professional relationship as fellow councilors.
And I hear that. I really hear that. The thing with me, though, I don't have a lot of money. The scripture talks about a good name is more desired than choice gold and silver. You don't have to apologize to the public at large. All I'm saying is right here with us. Because, okay, let me ask this. Hypothetically, if I came to your house, your kids were there, right? That's what you said. What color was my car?
Chad, again, I am not going to talk about this. We can agree to disagree.
If I were there, you would have remembered the color of my car. You would have looked outside and made sure I lived. So all I'm saying is, what color was the car?
Chad, I am not going to go into picture. It's in the past.
So, Ian, we visited a neighborhood today, and we were talking about going back and picking somebody up.
That's right.
And so, what do you remember about house numbers and whatever?
I remember it took about 2 seconds for us to do a U-turn and then forget exactly which house we had just been at. And then I just picked a number of a house that was approximate to it so that we could arrive in the general location next time.
Yeah. So here we are, two guys. We're on a business mission, and we know we're coming back, and this thing plays out where it gets pretty intense, and then he said it took us 2 seconds to turn around and start out of there. And I asked Ian, I said, which house were we at? And he's like, you had a phrase.
I forget.
Presence of...
Oh, yeah, situational awareness.
Situational awareness. And this woman is basically having been harassed. She's got 2 kids in the house, and he wants her to tell him, if it was him, what color car was I driving? And it's dark. It's like, this is the... And not only that, he said, you don't have to accept my apology to everybody or whatever. He said something about an apology, but he said, you don't have to do it in public, but just do it here and now. He was planning on going public with that. Now, y'all, what are we doing? What is that we're doing? This is basically, for me, it's deja vu. And I'm not going to go, we're right at an hour at this point, so I'm just going to tell you about this. This is a former sheriff. He basically calls me up, and he tells me that all the pastors have gotten together and they have decided to get a blanket. He's trying to warn me, Johnny, y'all need to stop going to these places and videoing and, talking to these pastors, talking to their members, whatever, and videoing it and playing it. They're getting tired of it. And so he said, somebody's called me representing all the pastors, and they're talking about getting a blanket, no trespassing, or a restraining order on you. And he said, this is on tape. And he said, you wouldn't want that, would you? I said, 100%. I would love for all of them to demonstrate to the county, the city and the county, how afraid they are of the message that we're actually putting out there and getting their answers on tape and how terrible they look. Yes, please, all of y'all admit that you must restrain what group of individuals? The Church of Christ. Why? Because they're affecting all of us. Mayor Jones, who's affecting everybody? Mayor Jones said that he had a beef with Caleb. Caleb's going to talk about that tomorrow night. Listen, you are talking to the wrong folk, and they do not have the remedy, and I guarantee you this is going to backfire on you. Now, let me ask, we have a producer with us tonight that has a bit of mileage. Did this guy actually threaten you in any kind of way, or was it just like, get out of my face? All right, so we went to an event that Mayor Jones invited Caleb to, and Ian went, I went, and one of our producers that's with us tonight went as well, and we couldn't get out of there without this guy getting hostile. And it's on tape. Yeah, it's on tape. Not only that, another one of the participants made a claim that God came in his prison cell. Remember that?
That's right.
God came in his prison cell, and basically I got a message from God. And so Caleb gets up and says, this guy's been in prison. My dad's been in prison. How come God didn't tell them how to get out of prison? And so that guy packed up his stuff. He had a big presentation, packed up his stuff. His entourage, they all hit the door. You know why? It's a scam.
He was there to sell a book
He was there to sell them.
at an event about how to solve abuse of women.
Domestic violence.
And I don't believe the book had anything to do with that subject.
It absolutely did not have anything to do with that subject, and it is just unbelievable what we have going on and the remedies that are being put forth. Can I encourage you tonight? Look, this is not personal, and it is not racial. That is as white a patty face as you can dream up. That's Sheriff Lane Perry. This is not racial. It is not personal. You guys do not have the answer, and trying to bring the pastors into it is the worst thing, because the criminal portion, and when I say criminal, I mean nothing. Caleb said that tonight some of my favorite people in the world are former felons. You know, when we say the word criminal, we're just simply trying to get your mind to be trained in. Criminals think that the pastors are the scourge of our city and our county because they are playing the same game. They're scamming people just exactly like the criminals are, except it is not criminalized. It is actually a part of our culture, and it needs to go.
Yeah, a lot of them are. So I had a buddy that was on the sheriff's department, and in describing individuals that were on the police, certain individuals, this is not a blanket statement against all law enforcement or whatever, but he said a lot of these guys that end up in these positions where they're in charge of what's going on in the city, they're thugs, just like any of the guys that are behind bars, except they are on the right side of the badge.
Well, let me just do just a minute of overtime here to get some of your assessments that are so very timely, Ian.
Feel with one another, and I think that's like super huge. Now, when I got out of jail, one of the things that I tried was AA and NA, so Narcotics Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous, and these are designed to be like safe spaces for folks that have a common problem. And one of the things that I felt lacking in that environment were that I was constantly discussing with other people that were just as damaged as I was, and there wasn't really, everybody was talking basically about their past experiences or the hardships that they had, but nobody was living a sufficiently strong life to be able to lead me to where I needed to be.
Key. Man, I have to play that last segment one more time, Ian. This is what persons who have problems are looking for. The guy that was talking to me this morning, he knew I'd been in the pen. He started out by telling me, you can't understand what I deal with. And I'm like, dude, you've never even been in the pen. You've been in a small city Martinsville jail.
There's a lot of conversation these days about people needing to see representatives that look like them. And that's applied generally racially, as far as I can tell, in popular media. But I think just when I saw you guys and the interplay between you guys as you were having your frank discussion, I think that he could tell that you look a lot more like him than somebody like Chad Martin or Jones.
Yeah, color does not matter in a situation like that. And so, okay, listen to Ian's assessment from being there. You're in the Dream Center, which you described the Dream Center in LA.
It's in Los Angeles at the old Queen of Angels Hospital. It'd be very easy for anybody to look that up.
If it hasn't burned up.
If it hasn't burned up, it's got basically the largest food bank in Los Angeles, they claim, but it's a discipleship program, they call it, where people can come and stay cost-free for up to a 2-year period and basically be in a recovery program. Not so much a rehab, but it's a recovery program where you just learn a rhythm. You know, they give you work, and they do give you an opportunity to read the Bible there.
Okay. Huge.
Yep.
This is a huge, probably gets all kinds of government funds.
Oh yeah, big time.
Just no telling.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's basically the government's remedy. Okay, listen to what Ian said about the problem he had with the people that were talking to him about success.
As I was, and there wasn't really, everybody was talking basically about their past experiences or the hardships that they had, but nobody was living a sufficiently strong life to be able to lead me to where I needed to be able to lead. So one thing that I did find where that was lacking in California is I was searching and I was reaching out for, I started reading the Bible when I was in jail, and I was looking for somebody that wasn't just going to commiserate with me, but somebody that was actually living.
He just church's mic off, and this is the best part.
In such a fashion as they could show me
They can
and help
actually show
guide me. Before you knew it, I wound up getting associated with the brethren out here with the Church of Christ in Virginia.
Thank you.
Thank you.
He basically said he did not have this. What was sufficient would be people who had achieved beyond the damage and whatever that you're involved in the surrounding group of individuals. They looked like you, been in the same place with you, but they had not sufficiently changed to the point where they represented success to you until you got online and you started looking at folk in this area in the Church of Christ. What does the Bible say? And he migrates with our help. You migrate all the way from California to Virginia, and now you're basically positioning yourself. You visited the guy with me today. We were all going to be on the same program today in the studio at Channel 18. And so we're just saying, listen, if you want an alternative, you don't have to wait for some get together or whatever. We have people from different backgrounds that are meeting with us every week. We have visitors coming in every Sunday. You just would not believe just the different backgrounds or whatever, and they're getting fed information from the Bible. And you can have persons that are involved in mentoring here who have sufficiently achieved so that you can actually know that it is doable. Ian, thank you very much for being with us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
This is the second night you've been out. You got a very, very busy schedule. He's at the City Council meeting last night, and now he's on with us on What Does the Bible Say? Caleb will be with you again tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on What Does the Bible Say? With part 3. I expect it will be fantastic from the footage that came from the City Council meeting. Always ask for What Does the Bible Say? God bless you. Good night.